See, now you got me. Yeah, I mean, I can, I don't need to be on twice.
That's who's trying to get on, Patricia? Who's trying to get on? I see her there now.
Yeah, she used the link on the web page that on the email link.
Patricia, can you hear us? You're muted.
I thought I just heard her. Your volume
thought
should
so
be
too,
down. Yeah, your volume may be down.
Okay, acceptance of minutes for May 13th.
On the second page of the minutes, there was not a second, but I believe it was Brent, and I did not type it in there. So there's an action motion made by Greg. This is at the very end of the minutes regarding poultry keeping. So I believe that was Brent. And
Yes, he seconded all of them.
Yep. Motion to accept. That change. Yep. Or a second?
Second.
Moved by Dwight, seconded by Greg. All in favor? The vote. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move into the public hearing number 5. What I'd like to do is, there's several items here that are changes to the ordinance and the solar ordinance as well. The board has done a lot of work on all this. So the process I'd like to use, with the exception of Main Street, businesses on Main Street, basically start with a motion, a second, and then we'll go into the public part of the hearing. And then before we vote, I'll ask if there's any additions from the board. Then we'll have a vote. Is that okay? All right, so moving down to A, that was the street parking and loading. I'll entertain a motion for that one. 5A.
second.
I got a motion first.
I make a motion that we open, is that what I need to make a motion for? That it's open for public hearing?
Basically, you're making a motion to go forward to the council with recommendation
I
approval.
will make a motion to go forward to the council for the amendment to Article 4.12.g, off-street parking and loading.
And Dwight seconded. I heard Betty
That
seconded.
he did.
Betty seconded that one. Okay, so now we're moving into the public sector. Any input on 5A from the public? Hearing none in this audience. Patricia, online, any input?
No, sir.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded, discussion with the board.
I think we're good to go.
All in favor? Opposed? Vote. That work? Does that work?
We can keep going with that.
Okay, so let's go to B, 5B. This is Route 202 development. Clarify the standards. This section apply to all property with frontage 202. I'll entertain a motion for going forward to the council with this change. There is a second? Moved by Dwight, second by Greg. Going to the public. Any input from the public on 5B?
No, sir.
That was no, Patricia?
Yep, no.
Thank you. Thank you. Any input from the board? All in favor? All opposed? We're moving on to 5C, amendment to Article 3.11, Table 2. Talks to the planning board, conditional use permit within the village district. This has to do with egg production, raising birds for meat or egg production, but no roosters, as I understand it. I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion for amendment that we approve amendment to Article 3, 11, table 2, to allow the use of, what do we say, keeping of female domesticated birds raised for meat or egg production, excluding fully mature male chickens.
Here a second? Dwight seconded it. Going to the public. Any input from the public?
No, sir.
That was a no, Patricia?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any input from the board? All in favor? Opposed? The vote. We're moving on to D. This is the land use outside shoreline to prohibit residential use on ground floor building. Okay, this is the one we're gonna, it says right below, motion to table to the next meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to do that.
Second,
There's no need for public input because
tabled it.
we're gonna do the public hearing next time.
10th is the next.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. We're moving on to E, amendment to Winthrop Solar Energy System Ordinance. I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the amendments to the Winthrop Solar Ordinance System. The link is provided showing all of the changes that the town council requested and the board approved at our last meeting.
Here a second. Dwight seconded. Greg moved. Public input,
No, sir.
audience? Hearing none. Board? Any input? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that finishes up the action on the public hearing, right? Moving on, development review. This is 149 Main Street. Dawn, how do we proceed?
This item, you have reviewed preliminary, that they had a pre-application, you had a discussion. You've also had a site walk. The meetings, including this evening, have been noticed to the public as public hearings because there's different noticing requirements. So you do still want to open it up to public input, but all of those criteria have been met in terms of the ability to make a decision. So at this point, excuse me, you have to determine if the application is complete. And if it is, you could make a decision at any point. But so the first step is to go through checklist, part of your materials. See, the front of it is, it was the original application that came in. Wasn't sure, Greg's got it right there.
Yep.
And so in there, there is an actual checklist and the applicant has asked, basically, there are some provisions that are not applicable, and I think that we should acknowledge. I don't think you need to make a formal waiver, but there should be an acknowledgement that it's not needed to be submitted, so that's therefore is met.
All right, the 14 steps are in here somewhere.
It's actually the last page.
Behind the drawing. Thank you. Thank you. I got it. How do you want to proceed with that?
I suggest that you go through them and just acknowledge whether the information is submitted or if the waiver is requested, acknowledge that, in fact, that information is not necessary for this project or otherwise.
Okay, so one is the final subdivision plan that's been submitted as Exhibit B. And stop me here as I'm going through if there's a question or input or concern. Or two, successful soils test. A waiver is requested for this item due to the building being connected to the public sewer system. Number 3, erosion control plan, a waiver is requested for the item due to no site working being performed. 4, stormwater management, a waiver is requested for this item due to no site work being performed. 5, phosphorus control plan, a waiver is requested for the item due to no site work being performed. 6, nitrate concentration, a waiver is requested by this item due to the buildings being connected to public sewer. 7, traffic study, the proposed addition of the 56 residential units will result in a projected increase of 29 vehicles in the peak PM hour traffic entering or leaving the site. This is discussed more earlier in the application. 8, solid waste disposal. Solid waste will continue to be removed from the site by a licensed private contractor. 9, letter from the Winthrop Water District. A letter has been requested. The buildings are already connected to public water. 10, financial technical ability are discussed earlier in the application. 11, letter from the town engineer, a waiver requested for this item due to the property not having or not proposing any municipal roads. 12, evidence of road ownership and road maintenance, a waiver requested for this item due to the property not having and not proposing any municipal roads. 13, performance guarantee, a waiver requested for this item due to the property not having and not proposing any municipal needs. And 14, fee amount and date received. Any discussion on those?
Mr. Chairman, a number of the items were listed as no site work. I guess I wanted to confirm with the applicant at some point that none of the parking area is changed and all of that is existing.
You want to do that now? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yes, all the parking that we're proposing is existing. We're, not doing any additional work there other than, maybe repainting lines in some places. So, yeah, there's no disturbance of soil that would create erosion or stormwater runoff.
Further questions?
I think my only other question was, did we receive paperwork from the town that the sewer was adequate to handle the new capacity?
Better.
We did get that? Okay.
Yeah, it's on, stay, paper clipped to the materials for this.
It is?
The language in the application form seems to indicate this is like for a subdivision. If you're going to build a new road, like for a subdivision road, and we're not proposing to build any new roads. So that's why I asked for a waiver.
Do you rely on existing roads and parking spaces?
Yes. Yes. Some of them are private roads and the public road is already, Clark Street is already a public road. And we're allowing that to maintain two-way traffic, which it has now. So there's actually no change there. The private road, well, I've got, do you want to talk about the whole? Okay.
Other questions?
The town road, but it does not meet the local standards. It doesn't meet any of our standards.
On?
The application.
Right. Are we jumping ahead by getting to the traffic plan? I always get confused by this part about whether we're doing application complete versus actually getting into the application. Okay. Okay. Yeah, but based on our checklist, I guess there is a traffic study and we're saying that exists. We're not saying we agree with it. We're just saying that exists. So do we need to do that for application complete or do we wait? I'm just asking procedurally, is it now or is it after? I'm okay either way.
Just in my mind, if you have an expectation,
If you're missing something, then the
Missing.
application complete.
choices, you either wait for it
Okay. Yeah.
or
Again, I struggle with this part of the process, separating them in my mind too, because which one is application complete, which
I
one's
think
the actual
cover it by
application?
making it conditional if indeed.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we move to approval, then you can either make that argument or say we want to change or we want all these things. But if the application is complete, even if we don't like it, parts of it, it's still complete. So that's where it's weird. Yeah. Yep.
It's either 30 days or within a mutually agreeable time.
Yep.
So
Basically, the application complete binds the two parties to a deadline to resolve whatever in order to move forward with the application complete, table it, or refuse it.
I misunderstood that last
What-
part.
Well, you can either table it, or you can approve it, or you don't approve it.
Yeah.
That's your three choices, right? And that's after if you do application complete, you can still do all that.
Yes.
That's what Greg's asking.
Commission would make a decision on the completeness, and then absolutely you can request more information, different information. You can approve it conditioned upon certain things being
Right.
submitted. Yep. You know, have a lot of,
Latitude. But what it does is starts the clock ticking on the days for the two parties to make a decision. I don't know if that helps.
Yes.
Okay. Any other input?
That's really, again, where I get confused. It's
Let-
sort of like,
Let's take the confusion away. Let's talk about it.
okay, that's fine.
That was one option that and I've understood from our previous discussion that that's not a viable option. You don't want to remove any parking spaces. So we'll have to work around that. Right, there is no way that with those parking spaces there, well, let me back up a little bit. On a 25-mile-per-hour road, DOT says you have to have 200-foot line of sight when your car pulls up to the edge of the road. Doesn't happen anywhere here now, but you know, those streets are existing, and you know, it's it's an existing condition that it's not going to change. And the only real way you could change it, you can't move the building back. You can't, and we want to keep the parking spots too, because likely some of our folks will be using that. So the opportunities to do something to improve that line of sight are very limited. We can't do much to improve that. So if we end up going to DOT, I did have some initial discussions with them about line of sight. They're looking for this 200-foot line of sight. And I explained that this is, it's not possible to do that in an existing built-up situation like this. So he said there may be some measures we could do to improve traffic flow. And so this discussion that I had in that narrative I gave you tries to flesh that out a little bit. And, that would solve it if you want to get rid of the parking spaces, but I understand that's not a really a good solution. So, I've suggested some other changes in there, better signage. Basically, I took a look at that little island, and there's, the do not enter sign is right down here, very low. So it's not obvious that it's there. The other enter here signs are little 12 by 18 signs that are, again, are on a concrete curb that likely gets hidden by the first snowbank of the year. What I propose to do would be to put signs on poles, on regular posts like you'd expect to see on any public road, that would be easier for a driver that's not familiar with the area. That, drivers don't look along curbs for street signs. They look about 5 or 6 feet high and, facing them. So by improving the signage there, and in some cases, just repairing the signage that's there, because as you're coming out Mechanic Road toward Main Street, there was an existing keep right sign to tell people to go around that island to the right. Well, I was laying down on the island, so no one knew that they were supposed to stay right. So that could create a problem. So installing proper signage, or installing signage where people will look for it, I think is important. And that may be a reasonable improvement and a low cost improvement. That doesn't cost much to put up a good sign. So it is a private road. Mechanic Street.
Yeah.
Yes, at our cost. We had initially considered that, and we've ruled that out. There's too much going on that island. There's a utility pole. There's a lot of infrastructure that's concentrated in that island. There's yeah. Well, for example, to move a fire hydrant, you need to have another fire hydrant nearby because those are spaced where the fire department needs them. To move that fire hydrant would likely mean digging up that entire road, Main Street, Mechanics Row. In theory, yes, but is it realistic to expect that? You also have to move utility poles. And if you look up there, it's like a spider web of utility lines coming into that pole because it's at the center of an intersection. Sure. Yeah. It is possible to do all these things. No, because I don't think it is logical to do that. That would be, several $100,000 to improve an island that's been there for, I don't know, you tell me how long it's been there.
Anything else, Dwight?
No. So, yes, it would improve safety marginally. It will not increase the line of sight. That's the if I submitted a permit to DEP and I talked about DOT, I'm sorry, yes. That's what I heard, whether you said that or not. If we submitted a permit to DOT, the first thing they would require is the line of sight. I had a discussion with David Allen of DOT by email, and said, there is no way to get the line of sight because it's not reasonable to request the town give up 10 parking spaces because there are some in front of 129 Main Street that would also have to be removed. So he said he would look at other options. So I shot back an idea of putting up, those convex mirrors that you see. That got shot down. I sent the email and, went on to the rest of my work. I looked up 5 minutes later and he said, no. Didn't really offer any alternatives, but he didn't like that idea at all. So. That I did, and he shot it down without any sort of discussion. So I I'm not sure. One thing that Don mentioned here earlier is, what do we do in other towns? This problem does not come up in other towns because most downtowns of, communities this size are urban compact districts. Winthrop has not chosen to avail themselves of that zoning opportunity. And so I haven't run into this before because, if I'm doing something in a heavily developed area like this, it's all covered under the urban compact. And by doing that, that allows the local public works director or road commissioner to make decisions on this locally rather than deferring to DOT. I don't know that we do. If in other towns, we would not. Clark Street is not a driveway, so I don't believe I can pull a permit for an existing road. Mechanic Road, yeah. It's an existing driveway that we're not proposing to change. And there really is not a great option of anything that we could do there because again, I don't believe moving that island wouldn't improve much. It is indeed. Yeah, yeah. Peak hour. It has not yet because right now that intersection is used a lot by folks coming to the clinics. We will, yes. Of that 20. I believe it will remain the same. Here's why. All 29 trips are not necessarily going through that intersection. The trips into and out of the site will be divided between, this is the intersection you're talking about up here. This is an in only between the two buildings. That's an existing driveway that I originally talked about coming out, but going in, that's a one-way in. There are 22 or 28 spaces, something like that in there, yes. Not all 29 cars are going to go there. The parking for, I broke it up into two pieces because there's the building that's along Main Street here and the other one that goes along the side here. Roughly half are on each side. So some of those trips, call it 30 trips. So 15 per hour might be in here. 15 per hour will be into and out of Mechanic Street. Because that's just dividing it up based on where people are living. Also, we're not limiting, if somebody lives on the building that runs parallel to Main Street, we're not saying you have to park there. You could park there. They may find it more advantageous, easier to park over in the main parking spot that's already there. So if, I don't know, there's a lot of what ifs. And putting up signs is the most obvious solution that we could do to improve safety immediately. Okay, I'm not sure. It just seems logical. There's not, well, obviously the best thing you can do is change site geometry. That's a no-go in this instance. Can't do that. We can't move the building. We can't move the road. No, we can't move Main Street. We can't, there's an existing road that's used. Mechanic Street is technically on our property, but it's been used as a public right of way. And I think, the folks that work at the clinics go through there every day, they're used to it. And I think as the tenants start in the property, they will be used to it as well. The only unknown is the people coming to the clinics for treatment, that they might come once, twice, 3 times a year, something like that. There's nothing we can do about that, but that's already an existing issue, if indeed it is an issue.
My only question I think left was on the application. Make sure I get the floors right. So is one like what I would consider kind of like the basement where the little tiny windows? It's kind of down when you labeled the floors, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes,
One is kind of the basement level.
but we're only working on the top 2 layers, the top 2 floors.
Right. No, when you do the parking calculations on your parking calculation sheet.
Yep.
So you have on the south tower, vacant, like where the cafe was, and you had 0 parking spaces needed. And I'm like, is there not a plan to ever put anything back there or whatever? And then for the north tower, it was storage, so it was 2 parking spaces. The rest of your parking spaces all seem reasonable to me, but if we're talking about parking, and you have a little bit of room as far as capacity, if you add the Mechanic Street parking, which is, I guess the only thing I didn't know for sure is like, you own Mechanic Street. Do you own the Mechanic Street parking, or is that shared, or is that, I don't know. I don't know exactly where the property lines are there to know who owns what. And I just wanted to make sure there was capacity. So I'm thinking, like, oh, the medical center takes 35 spaces, medical's 25. If that was retail space at, 10,000 or 12,000, or if you added both together, it could be 20,000 square feet. That would require a handful of spaces, and that isn't on here. So,
Right, but right now, that space is vacant. It has no parking demand.
right, but in the application, you said, well, it said specifically the first floor was going to be commercial. But it
It's
didn't.
required to be, yes.
Yeah, so I think that was desired, but there should be numbers in there if the first floor is still the first floor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm getting my floors right. That's. part
Yeah,
of it.
I understand what you're saying. And I think whatever goes in there is going to have its own unique parking demand. And we've got a surplus here of 22 spaces.
I see that there's a little bit of a surplus, so I wasn't overly concerned, but I was just thinking, okay, if something like the medical facility, if they wanted another whole floor and you needed another 35 spaces, where's that capacity going to come from? Does that exist? So that's really the question. I think you have the property and the land, but then you would have to come back to get that expansion. So I want to make sure it's clear to the applicant, when we're looking at the application, is that those spaces are not used for anything that requires parking.
That's actually not something that we can address because we're only permitting those top 2 floors. We don't have any control over what happens on the other floors.
Yes.
On the wing that's parallel with Main Street, that's all basement, unfinished, unlikely to ever be much use of anything. The other wing that goes perpendicular to Main Street, most of that is storage space and mechanical space. So there's very little square footage that's actually able to be used for businesses of any sort. There's the cafe, which talked about, and then there's maybe there's a little tiny bit of office space there, but not much at all. So I mean, out of the whole square footage of that first floor between those 2 wings, I mean, the amount of business square footage that is able to be used is, I mean, maybe 10%, 15% of the base floor of the building.
Okay, so the plan is not to do any development on what's called the first floor or the basement floor of
We're
the
not
north
proposing
building.
we're not
I know that
proposing
one's
anything, and I don't think
empty.
it's really possible.
Yeah,
Most of it's being used for mechanical space and then there is some storage space and then there's like a real, unfinished space that I don't really think, I don't know. To
well,
me,
the north building is the one on Main Street. That one there's really nothing in that basement floor.
And it'd be hard to do anything with,
I'm-
that's where the river goes underneath and.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things, and you've got a little bit of capacity. I just wanted to kind of at least talk through that is if you were to put something like the medical center, maybe that wouldn't fit, but something
Yeah.
like that down there, you would be out of parking. You know, you might even exceed your parking limitations.
Yeah, as a general contractor, I'd never try that, you know, it doesn't really work that space to do much with, but in
Okay.
theory, possibly somehow, maybe, you know, but
Okay.
very
I mean,
unlikely.
and that could be getting past application complete into a possible condition upon approving a building permit, but I just wanted to kind of at least get a sense from you and your representative, at least what the thought was, because we want to be careful. We have to look at the whole facility. We have to look at the whole application. And somebody goes over and we need one more parking space. Well, now we are doing site work. We are doing erosion control. And is that reasonable to have that one little tiny piece that just pushes you over the top? You got a little capacity here. So I just wanted to kind of talk through that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Betty? Don, anything to add? Oh, before you go there, one we haven't talked about, we have talked about previously, and I understand it's external, but is the chimney. And I had asked previously about an update on what the status of that chimney is in terms of integrity and going forward.
Right, we have not found anybody yet that can actually look at that other, there was a gentleman here that was a mason that actually had gone through and repointed
He's here?
that. Wasn't it here?
Say again,
There was a mason who had
Yep.
gone through and repointed that
right?
about 15 years ago, I think he
Correct.
said. And that's the most recent person that we've had that has any specific knowledge of that. We haven't found anybody else. And so, you know, we could talk with Mr. Green and see if he has anybody else, or I don't know who, other than a mason, would really be a legitimate expert to say that that's in good shape or bad shape. So
So nothing's been done on it other
nothing
than,
has been done, if that's correct.
okay. Yes,
So there's some standard conditions you all apply to applications, but I did break out and note some potential specific conditions to this project based on discussions that you previously had, one of which was the stack. And that recommendation is number 7. It doesn't identify who the qualified entity is. There would need to be some research done to that extent, but before certificate of occupancy could be issued, require that documentation.
that'd be one of the conditions of,
That's a suggested, if you, so, and then, the DOT, to Dwight's comment, they do need a permit. But it's an unusual circumstance because I forgot we aren't in an urban compact. So normally the town would be approving that. So I guess it's becoming hard to figure out if there's any grandfathered status, for this. But I did put in a suggested condition requiring that either the applicant provide a statement from the DOT saying no permit is necessary, or, you know, providing a permit. And if that requires any modifications, they may have to come back to the board. But that is unknown right now.
yep, thank you. Any other input here in the audience or online? What is the board's desire for application complete?
Feel like it's
Go ahead, Dwight.
Condition. And then, so if you decided to make a decision and that was a condition, then the risk is on the applicant as to whether or not they'd have to come back. Change it.
That's what 5 is, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, so if they came back and there were any changes, they would have to come back to the board. The plan they submitted wasn't DOT. It's always the chicken and the egg, whether we approve it or not approve it and all of that game.
I'd know.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
what
not
is,
sure what that process is to become an urban compact zone, but that would avoid this question in the future.
Basically, we'd have the ability to approve it as.
The town could approve it, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the board's desire? Relative to application complete.
Me, I think we've got the package to say it's complete.
Motion.
Well, I was waiting to see if anybody else had 2 cents. Or I said it. Okay. Sure, I'll make a motion, the application for 149 Main Street, map 31, lot 23, Carlton Apartments LLC application, be deemed complete.
And these conditions would apply to going forward with the application, right?
The conditions are going to be on our possible approval of the application. This is just, is the application complete?
Very second,
Second.
discussion. All in favor? Approved.
It's
The
complete.
next step is how many days?
30.
Say approved.
It's
The
complete.
motion passed.
Motion.
Let me say it differently. Application complete motion has passed. How's that? And the clock's ticking now. How many days? 30 days. So the next step would be reviewing the application. And what you've put out here is conditions that could be roadblocks.
Yeah, there were things that previously were identified as things that the board had concerns about and wanted to have addressed. So some of it's still open-ended. So the conditions were suggested because at this point you can make a decision tonight, 3 weeks, whatever, you know, where you're at. But if you decided to tonight, those would address potentially the concerns that.
Concerns. Anything we're missing in those conditions? What I'm trying to do is set up a fair scenario so the applicant understands the expectations relative to the application. And so that we aren't wasting your time, you're not wasting ours. Okay, we all set with that one? Dawn, we're all set?
Yes.
Okay.
It's time.
Thank you very much.
So we'd be coming back for, can you give us any guidance on issues that other than the traffic one seems to be the biggest question?
Well, there's a list here.
Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah.
one thing missing on here is, I talked to Dawn about this. We've got to address Clark Street. That's not with your property, but that definitely is not, doesn't meet any standard for a two-way road. And with increased volume and possible usage, that's really something the town has to address. And there's really no easy way to, and I don't think that's necessarily for the applicant to address. I just think it's something that needs to be discussed. And I think there is capacity, but it's going to require taking the front lawn of the buildings next door. I think is the only reasonable way to make that two-way traffic. Because the way the building sits and the little granite blocks sit, and it's just it's too tight.
It's really tight through there.
It's barely a driveway. And in the wintertime, it's almost impassable.
Yeah.
So I got to think the town would want to address that too. So that's a concern. And I think, I mean, some of the things on here that we would want addressed is, you know, it doesn't sound like we have a good plan for, you know, how we would check the chimney, repoint the chimney. You know, there's definitely some large gaps in the mortar, but so it could just be a mason certification saying that, you know, water's not getting in, and that they've repointed it so that to the point where it's going to be stable.
I did notice that they put some sort of cap on the top of it that prevents water from going down the inside, which is.
You sure that wasn't a velocity increaser?
I'm sorry?
That era, they were putting in cones like that for velocity increases to get the discharge higher. Very common practice.
Okay.
So I'm not sure it is a water cover. If there's a hole in the middle, it's not.
Okay. Yeah. I
But
wasn't
my
aware of that.
recollection in that era, they were doing that on older stacks, to increase the velocity on the discharge to get the discharge higher. So you had less fallout nearby.
Okay.
Just want to make sure procedurally, the application's been deemed complete, But this evening, you're still going to take public input and deliberate. I'm under the impression the applicant might think that you're done for tonight, but you're still going to take public input and deliberate. Is that correct?
Correct. And that's relative to the application, all right?
Just wanna-
Not the application complete. That's in the approval process.
Right.
You're talking about. Okay. I mean, technically, we don't have a public hearing going right now for this. Is that correct? Or do we?
Just as one, so you can open it, take.
So why don't we, so should we do that then? And
Sure.
Feel ready?
cross that, dot that I and cross that T. The question, or the point that Don's bringing up is that there is the opportunity for the public to input into this project. So I'd ask, is there anyone here that wants to input or ask questions to this project we're discussing currently?
Or online. Okay.
Seeing none in the audience, online, any input, questions about this particular item on the agenda? Patricia? We lose Patricia? Anybody online that has input relative to this project?
Not at this
According-
time. No, no, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so we've completed the public hearing side of it. To your point, Don?
Yes.
So next time we can, whatever meeting we schedule it for, we can review and decide if we want to approve the application.
Just ask that you, possible if you do decide to continue it to a date and time specific.
Right. At that meeting, whenever we put it on the agenda, schedule it at that point, right?
Selfish. If you table it, we're required to remail all of the notes.
Right.
Done twice. You may find it's appropriate to table it, and we certainly will renotice.
So you're saying we need to table it tonight
When
from
it's done, if you think they're going to come back at the next meeting, you can say that. I won't have to mail all of those notices, but it's also completely appropriate to just table it and they come back when they come back.
we're really at their mercy, right? What are your feeling in terms of coming back the next meeting?
We'd be happy to come back the next meeting. I don't know that we'll
No,
have all
I'm
this.
sorry,
so-
but, okay, that's, my next point was prepared.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll
If not
have,
be prepared, don't come back.
Right.
Well, you're welcome to come back, but
well, I'm not sure that, we can certainly reinitiate discussions with DOT and try to find out how we can address this. But we're getting into the summer now and they're in and out all the time. So
Don, what's your advice? Any action tonight necessary?
You feel clear on the things that, sounds like I'm hearing you say, you're going to want to come back with some information. We could just be very specific as to what that is.
Okay, so we haven't done that?
Well, you've talked in more general terms in the past. You talked about the stack, parking, were the two ones.
I mean, they're on here, right?
They are, if you feel comfortable with those suggested conditions.
Are you comfortable with that set of notes? Motion to,
Yes, and I am also comfortable with allowing the applicant, we will say, we'll meet the next meeting unless they notify Dawn that they're unable to.
that's a better way to handle it. That's a good point, Greg. Go
So
ahead, make a
Yeah.
motion.
I'll make a motion that, oh, hang on.
You could include in that motion unresolved, the things that we're resolving before the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank
The questions that, so I'm going to make a motion that the application for 149 Main Street, map 31, lot 23, lot 203, Carlton Apartments LLC, be tabled until our next meeting, June 10th.
Yes.
Unless the applicant is unprepared, the three things that I had written down that we wanted confirmed was the chimney inspection, the parking, and MDOT approval for access. So we just wanted it all nailed down and complete. Any other conditions that I missed?
Any other conditions you missed? Dwight? Betty? Okay, Don?
Oh, sorry, right now.
Okay, I hear a second. Do I hear a second? Dwight seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Does the applicant have any?
I have a question. Could you be more specific as to what the parking question is?
I think, I mean, for me, it was just outlining the spaces and being clear that the vacant areas are not going to be able to be utilized, unutilized space. Just making sure that that's clear. And
I'm sorry, I'm thick tonight. I got started early today.
yeah,
The,
South Tower and North Tower have the areas that are storage and vacant with the number of spaces estimated for those. And I would make it clear what the square footage of those spaces, what the square footage, usable square footage was, and that the applicant clearly is saying that, okay, we're not going to be using that for commercial space or medical space or whatever.
Certainly, we will not be using that because we don't have control over that. We only have control over the top 2 floors.
Okay, so you're not the building, you're not representing the building owner, you're representing the lessor? Or you only own those
No,
floors?
he's buying the top 2 floors.
Okay, so not the whole building.
Yeah, that's all, yeah.
Okay, so that makes it even more important that we get clarification that those are not going to be used for additional spaces. Because then if the first floor all of a sudden becomes occupied, now who do we get approval? You get the free pass and they don't? So we need to,
Yes.
yeah, and
Essentially, yes, because we're here applying now, and if they wanted to do something, they have the opportunity to come in and apply, and if they need to create spaces, then
right,
so be it.
then we would like a letter from the property owner notifying and making sure that they understand that that is going to be required.
perfect.
That way we've got it nailed down and there's no question that we left somebody hanging on a limb, if that makes sense.
That does. Thank you.
Okay. I knew it was clear in my head. Sorry, I didn't articulate it right.
Okay, thank you.
Where we at? Motion made and seconded?
And we were about to vote, but we were just looking for comments and that was the last.
Any other comments? You're all set? All in favor? Opposed? The vote. Thank you.
Okay,
And
thank you.
please advise,
We'll keep in contact with Dawn.
Yeah, if you
Good.
can't make the next meeting.
Yeah, we've been in contact with her a couple times since the last meeting, and it's been pretty productive.
thank you.
Seconded that motion, I'm sorry.
I think Dwight.
Dwight did, okay, thank you.
White did. Okay, G, Boot Cove Lane. Talk to us. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So some of you weren't here when we first came in to talk about this, and I think that email that I got from Rick, allegedly from Rick, is something that you guys should talk about maybe after we leave, or I don't know, but there's something
Now,
that could be
just so
discussed.
everybody's aware of what's going on. Go ahead.
So I got an email from supposedly Rick asking for payment to approve or administrative payment to move this project forward. And it all came from townofwinthrop.gov. It had Rick's name on it. It had the letterhead. It had the whole procedure. Everything we were trying to do was all outlined very eloquently in the email. And the thing that caught me was they wanted me to wire the money. And so I don't think that wiring the money was going to be the right move. But it came off as legit. So
Very
that's
scary,
just,
though.
yeah, it is scary. And it's something that people should be aware of. If this happens in the future.
You ought to have your name on it. It's even scarier. Excuse me, go ahead.
No, so that's just a side note for,
Thank you.
Aware.
One, for bringing it to our attention, two, for explaining it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow there will be a call from Rick Dory to the police chief, find out, because Dawn has assured me it's been forwarded to them, and I'll be finding out what the follow-up is, if there is any. But at least we can make it public and let people understand these scams are going on.
yeah. Well, and
We've
so-
now been hit.
Yeah. Another point that I'd like to bring up is to thank Don for always calling me back and always like responding. And so before I wired any money, Don was able to call me back. So I appreciate that, Don. At the last meeting, the request was to use the LiDAR data from USGS to further outline that stretch of property on Boot Cove that had 20% or more slope. And I submitted a map with that, outlining the 250-foot shoreland zone and the zone that was greater than 20% slope. And I thought the USGS map was extremely powerful, and it's a good tool to use. It makes me think, and as I was doing it, I was looking at other places across the town, and there's probably some other places that could use an update as well. So I don't know where we go from here, or how do we proceed it from what I was requested to what I gave to what's next.
Okay, I got thoughts. So no, I appreciate your effort, and I did pull up the 3-depth map and put distance and the color coding for what slopes those represented, and sent that to Don and Rick, who then forwarded it to the board. So we do have a copy of information. I didn't want to do the discussion part there. I wanted to do just the map features, just so you're very aware. I don't want to have a ex parte discussion or whatever.
Okay.
So I think the discussion part that I wanted to have with not only you, but I think with the board, is one of the reasons that resource protection is created is because at a slope of 20% or more, the vegetated buffer zone is limited, it becomes almost useless as rain falls and carries sediment directly into the lake. So the question would be, is there an offset from that we want to allow for a buffer zone? It does provide some protection, but limited protection at the 20%. And why 20% is this magic line? Because that's where I mean, I can go into the hydraulics, but I'm not going to. It's more just, that's what DEP determined. That's what's in shoreline zoning.
Mm-hmm.
So 20% is in shoreline zoning. So our question is, how far back should you have to build from that line? You know,
Yeah,
and a simple answer for me when I look at it is, well, if you have slopes, so any other property, if they had slopes at 19%, they weren't in resource protection, they'd have 100 feet back from the lake. So a simple answer is 100 feet back from the edge of that line would be reasonable, because that's what we would be allowing.
Right.
But is that overly restrictive, and should we be thinking a smaller number? So I think 100 feet would meet shoreline zoning and probably exceed shoreline zoning, but do we as a board want to discuss that and possibly make that a smaller number, or do we want to keep it at 100? But again, when it comes to your application and your client, like we said, we thought there was, adequate space on the property, and build rate on that line still doesn't make any sense to me. So I would say we have to have some distance off that line to make a reasonable buffer. And I don't think the town has that. But also, unfortunately, where we're stuck is we can propose to adopt this line as the new zone, but until that's been adopted by the town council, you'd have to go to the ZBA to get a variance, because we cannot approve it at the 250 foot because it's in resource protection. I know that we had the discussion about that, about whether we can or whether we can't, and I still think it's kind of fuzzy. I still don't think it's clear whether we could actually approve that. To me, getting a variance would be the easier path, because, if they granted you a variance to go inside that 250 for the resource protection, then it would be legit, and there would be no question about it. And you wouldn't have to wait for the adoption of the new resource protection line before you could get your project moving.
Right. And there's also language in the comp plan too that mentions these specific things. The comp plan says that they recognize that the old maps may be not as accurate, and that a site specific thing is probably more useful. That's in the comp plan. The other part about the slopes too, I think one of the confounding things is that It depends on what your best management practices are that you have on site. So if you have a place that, say they're at a 100-foot setback and they have a 10% slope, if they don't do anything right and they don't do, it can be a disaster. And that all depends on how well the code officer inspects things. And so things can go bad even on poor, lesser slopes. So just because it's that slope doesn't, if you do things right, then you can mitigate these things. That would be what I would say about that.
No, I agree. And I think that's one thing that we try to focus on the board is alternate actions.
Right.
Can we build
Yeah.
natural swales? Can we build rain, gutter collection pools to go to a dry well to deal with the water in the best way managed. So we're managing the sediment that's running down into the lake.
Right, for sure.
So that's the question. And that's where I said you're right, it is somewhat site specific because just because it's a magic 20% line, you're at 19.5% and then it goes to 20
Right.
and that's the line, that doesn't really mean anything. It's like that we know that there's some gray area there.
Right.
So we know it's an interpretation, but
Yeah.
again, I think we're stuck as far as approving it until we get resource protection line redrawn. I think the information you provided to me, that's not spot zoning, that's redefining the line. And it does raise the question, we probably should be doing that town-wide, something we can request on to put in the town plan for next year and say, we redraw the resource protection for the entire town of Winthrop. So.
Yeah.
The
So
school
what
makes
would
it pretty easy to do, so it wouldn't be very expensive.
So let me ask a question, just so I understand the relationship that you're talking about. We did the site visit. It's very obvious the steep slope and the fact that you shouldn't build near it. And I understand your point about coming back from that. What is that number?
And
And
then,
then that said, looking at that site, you had the steep slope going down the water here and you had another slope up here. And there was an area, I think there was a tent platform there as well over here. There was an area that was obvious to me that was buildable. And what that dimension was from that slope edge, and I assume looking at the drawing, that's that line right here.
the red line would be, the
Yeah,
red
that's
line
that
would be,
slope, that's the top of that slope.
that's the top of that slope. Yeah.
So somewheres in here is that flat spot.
Yeah.
Where it's feasible to do
Well, it's
whatever, a building and,
Be helpful if you plotted.
the possible location.
that was my next point was, how do we look at what we observed out there? And one of the expectations I had going forward, not necessarily tonight, but is taking that slope, that lot, that rise that's off to the side, and then that flat spot and superimposing on it, the building you propose, and a setback, to your point about, what makes sense, doing it right, building on that flat area and dealing with roof runoff, any kind of drainage that has a potential going down that slope. How do you deal with that? So I think it would be helpful us at this point to do that and lay that out. It's kind of like a plot plan, basically, relative to those slopes. I think we're at that point. Now, that said, Greg, help me understand if indeed, is that appropriate or is there an action necessary before that
I think it's,
that we have no control over?
I think the first thing we're going to need to do is if we like this line, which based on the 3-dep I duplicated, I think it's a reasonable approximation. That's what they asked the applicant. They put the time in. I think that's reasonable to ask the town council to adopt that line as the new resource protection line. But then we need to come up with an understanding of how far back from that we need to set a property.
See, to me, it would be helpful to have that work done
And maybe we
with
should.
that slope, with that proposal to council, so they understand exactly what the project looks like relative to that slope. So we have a package, I guess. Is that
Right, and-
feasible? Is that right? Is that? the right
Yes,
thing?
and that's where I said, if you went from the top of that red line and went 100 feet back, that's exactly, that would be the most conservative result because that's what we allow everywhere else. Where the slope is 19.5%, Yeah, 100 feet from the red line, from the top of the slope break, where you're saying the 20% or greater slope applies. Because anywhere on this property where the slope is at 19.5%, it's not in resource protection. And they could go we would allow them to build within 100 feet. So I'm saying that would be completely allowable under the state shoreline zoning guidelines and every other set of guidelines. But does the town need to have that
With that-
written?
With that layout, that plot plan and slopes included, with that kind of a package going to the council, I think would help everybody relative to that approval process. That's what you're proposing.
Well, I was proposing the new resource protection line to the town council. And that would allow us a path forward. I think they're still going to need, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm still thinking they're going to need a waiver, a variance from the ZBA, but this would be a package that the ZBA could then look at and decide if they wanted to approve, because then they would be able to grant the variance saying, hey, we are following state shoreline zoning because we're distance back from the required resource protection slope.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to speak real quick to the variance comments, because one of the criteria is if this is a self-imposed hardship, because this lot was created after the resource protection district was established. And you can grant a special exception for a single family home in the resource protection. This one's not eligible for it because of when it was created. So it'll be a self-imposed hardship. So I don't make the decision, the zoning board does, but I just want to put that out there. It would be difficult.
Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want you to know, when we started this project, we did mark out kind of like a house lot. And my client's been working with some architects in Belfast. And we do have the ability to do some landscape architecture too with water runoff. And we envisioned a buffer zone before that edge of that knoll and bringing the water down the slope, through water retention off the roof, possibly living roofs, plunge pools and stuff. So I think what we need to do moving forward is get our architectural plan with the landscape architects too. And in regards to where we would like to see it and see if that works. Because we did leave a little buffer zone in there. That's not in the original plan, but we can have that done for you guys. And last question, what is the ZBA?
Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, perfect. It's always those acronyms that get
That's a
me.
town organization. That's a town.
Yeah, okay.
That's a town board, but that's where you'd have to get the variance.
Yep.
So I don't think the ZBA would grant any variance at all, because it doesn't match the criteria for a variance here.
Well, this is all around hardship.
Yeah, right.
And what you're saying is no hardship.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing.
Right. So there's no, and to your point, Greg, so what I kind of hear you saying is that you want to have the 20% slope count as the resource, and then you're 100 feet back from
That would be the most conservative method.
It would
be, and I wasn't proposing that to the board. I'm saying that it would be really hard. It would really be hard to read the main shoreline zoning and not say that was the most conservative way to interpret the resource.
Yeah,
is
so I think that's overly conservative.
it likely is, but I wanted to bring that up as say 100 feet back from that line. How far back from that line? Right. Maybe it depends on, is there a slope? What if it went up that 20% slope and then went to a negative 5% slope, right, and the water couldn't even make it over that hill?
Right.
What would that buffer look like?
Right.
Maybe it is site specific. I'm just saying, because the lot was big enough, and like Rick and I both said the same thing kind of when we did the site view, there's a couple options for building lots that wasn't where the tent platform was. And I think where we were talking about some of the options were like, I think it can come back a little bit more because it still seemed pretty steep where where they were looking.
And the other piece of it is, as you back up, now you're getting into another slope that's headed toward the road.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's another slope that heads back the other way
Right,
too.
yeah,
And so, and that's,
There's a
so the
sweet
hardest thing
spot
about all
there.
this stuff is that you can't write a rule that encompasses every.
No.
Right.
So-
That's why we went out and looked at it.
Right,
And there's a sweet spot for the project. And that's what we got to find.
Right.
And talk in those terms. And then what your plan is for remediation. The other thing, for what it's worth, where you put the culvert in, did you all fix up that mess that was left?
Yeah. So what happened was, and the other confounding thing is that they came in and graded the road. And so there's other things that need to be fixed too. So there's not to this project's doing, but the road has other ditch turnouts that need to be stabilized as well.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, yeah. Yep.
We're actually project, Bruce Unelli in Winthrop. We're actually in the project of doing earthwork out there right now, grading the roads out. We've cleaned out some ditches. So, you know, as much as we can with the budget we get. Of course, we're private funded, not town funded. And right now, most of the ditching is done. A lot of the turnouts are done. We're waiting to see. Everything seems to be working good. We haven't got overflow of silt going anywhere. The ditches are working, not running silt out of the road. We're almost done grading, so it'll be done this
Looking
week,
good
tomorrow.
then. It's looking good, looking better, I guess, what you're saying.
Well, and it's a work in progress. We spend about 11 grand a year just maintaining that road
Okay.
with no help from the town.
Thank you. You two all set on where we're at, you step in if I'm wrong.
So
I think it'd be in our best interest to get the plot on the map. We would like to build a
Lot plan
home
on it,
with a landscape design from a landscape architect with all the water runoff and everything, and then come
where the
back.
structure's going
Yep.
and what it looks like on that lot, what are the setbacks?
Yep.
Those will all be helpful.
So, unless the zoning changes though, it can't be approved there though. Like, so that's,
And when we get to other business, my recommendation is going to be to move this line forward
okay, all right.
with
all
a
right,
public message,
Okay.
but that's other business. That's after we get through
Gotcha,
everything that that's not your application problem.
gotcha.
That attempts to rectify the,
It's a start of addressing the zoning of resource protection using the newer data. And again, to make sure that we're talking to the town on a larger scale to address this everywhere, because it is a problem Winthrop-wide. It's a
Yeah.
problem statewide. Now the data exists and the tools exist. Why aren't we doing it
Right,
to fix it?
Right.
It's pretty easy to draw that line now.
right.
Um,
And the language, the language in the shoreline zoning ordinance says this one thing, and then the maps say something different. You gotta like combine
Gotta-
these things. to,
But
like,
again, the maps were drawn on 10-foot contours
Yeah.
where they're like, sure,
Right, yeah.
with a crayon. I mean,
Yeah, I know, right?
it's really, now the tools are they're all digital. They're really just point and click. It's so easy to define that line. Why not use that? I mean, I think it'd be worthwhile for them to talk to the ZBA because I feel like that's really, until this gets approved, we don't have an option. So to me, talking to them about a variance, if they come back and say no variance, then you might have to wait until we move this forward and see if.
the variance you're talking about would be the something less than the 100-foot setback from,
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to change this, plus we'll have to change how far back, and maybe we don't change how far back from the water we have. The limitation is no longer would this, part of the property would be in shoreline zoning, part of the property would be in resource protection. They wouldn't be allowed to build in resource protection.
Right.
They'd only be allowed to build in shoreline zoning, and then shoreline zoning applies, and then we would have the judgment of how far back from that line we would allow.
right?
That would be up to
So
us.
what is the question they're going to put in front of the zoning board of appeal?
Can they get a variance? Because right now they're in resource protection. Can
Right.
they get a variance to build inside resource protection? And if they say no, then you're kind of stuck. In my mind, then they're stuck until we change the resource protection.
Once we
Because
change it, then that's back in
right,
our
we
bailiwick.
can't change resource protection.
Right.
So we can change the line because of the new mapping, but we can't change the requirements. That's a state requirement. So that's where we're kind of stuck.
Are we clear?
Yep. It sounds like it's in our best interest to go back to get some more information, and we'll present that to you guys, and we'll reach out to the zoning board of appeals.
Dawn, go ahead.
Sound like an inspections, but required to notice the DEP when there's a variance.
Right.
They generally are not going to support it, so you might want to reach out to the DEP.
That's a good point.
Okay.
So
You're
the
smiling.
So the DEP is going to say, well, what you should do is remap these things based on the 20% slope.
Yep.
And then, so we're in a circular.
We are.
But I think,
loop. That's,
but I think Greg committed that we would start that process
okay.
with the council. Andy, go ahead.
Yeah,
Andy, speak in the mic, speak in the mic, speak in the mic.
that we're in resource protection or public water. I just want to comment on the ZBA. You really don't have anything to lose by going to ZBA. Okay, Dawn was quite correct about the language that they use, not the specific language, but the intent of the language. But the worst that can happen is they say no and you end up back where you started, and I think you spent $50. Okay, and you know, I need to make clear first that I am not a member of this planning board. I'm the town council's representative to the planning board, okay? And one of the reasons I landed here was because of my long experience in zoning. And you have nothing to lose by going and talking to ZBA. You know, the odds, I don't even want to tell you what the odds of being approved or disapproved are, because it's not my place.
Right.
You know, maybe I'll say it could be an uphill thing, but I know them to be fair-minded and to listen to your problem. Okay.
So another question that I had, I still haven't gotten an answer on how, like, the neighbor 2 doors down, how did they get theirs in?
That's an enforcement issue. They didn't come to us.
Right.
I went back and looked. They didn't come to us.
Is there anything in the files that said what they did, or like any direction we can follow from what they did, or?
I've been seeking that file and I've not come across.
Okay.
I look back, they haven't been to they weren't on the planning board on any agenda I found for the last 5 years. I did my own search, just looking at my notes. I've been on I didn't find anything in the last 5 years for that property on anything on Boot Cove Lane at all. So I don't know, not on any of the agendas or any of the documents.
Okay.
That's just in my files.
Well,
so
yeah, and I was just wondering about like the lot file, you know, like the lot file itself with
that would
permits
be
or,
the town.
you know.
Yeah, that would be the town.
I have a quick question for Dawn.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Dawn, I know that if you're granted a variance by the ZBA, it goes in your deed. Is it the same thing with the planning board?
If they went to the zoning board and got a variance
It would go in their deed.
on the deed.
Right, but I'm saying it's the same thing with the planning board approval?
Planning board can require things be recorded in a deed or a plan, but there isn't any requirement. Ordinance says.
Okay. It might be something to look at.
We rarely do it if ever, right?
It's the exception, not.
Right.
Oh, I don't,
Did we answer your questions?
I think so.
Anybody else in the audience have input? This gentleman spoke. Anybody else? Okay. Ryan, you all set, you're smiling. We're good? Okay. So before we move on, we want to deal with, path forward with,
I was going to put it on additional business if, okay.
now let's do it while it's,
Okay.
well,
No, that's fine. I was just going to recommend that as additional business, I think the question would be, can we redraw that? Recommend, and we'd have to do a public notice and ask Dawn for the next steps for getting that line, the resource protection line adopted
Townwide, or you're talking about this?
townwide. This project, but the line itself for this section, for this not just this property, but the whole red line, getting that adopted as the new resource protection line, updating our digital map.
My understanding is that's what this application is for.
Well, theirs is beyond this property.
Oh,
It's a larger portion. It's beyond, it's not just the one property that the applicant's looking for. It's all of the properties on that side.
So whatever the board decides they want the council to consider, I'll notice it. I just need to make sure that I have the map according to what you're saying.
Okay.
And it would include some property owners. And so that could be separate from what we're talking about now.
Yeah, and what I would do is call this a correction. You know, using LiDAR, best available data is much more enhanced. So we've got the work done, we've got the line defined. Can we move that forward with a correction to the resource protection on that side of the lake?
As I understand it, once it's put in front of the council and if they approve it, then that would go to the DEP as information for approval. Would they be involved?
I don't know if we're following state shoreline zoning, I'm not sure they would even need to approve it.
Map,
Yeah, if we revise that line.
as long as it still meets the definition,
It does. The definition is 20% slope, so
still checking with Colin and
yeah, it's fine.
I don't know
Yep.
if we officially need
So it's
to.
informing, not approving. Okay.
Are
Okay.
we talking just limited area or the whole lake?
Just, well, the only thing we have the line for is the limited area, but I think we want to define the whole lake.
The first step is this one.
The first step is this one, but then I think we want to put, Dawn usually comes to us with annual objectives. And I think to me, this is one of the objectives for her to put in her budget next year is to have not just this lake, but all the lakes done. Because this tool makes it so easy, so cost effective. This is, you know, only days worth of work for a geospatial expert.
But we have the ability to go forward with this section.
That's my thought is because it seems unfair to the applicant. They did what we asked. They created the line for this bank, which was incorrect. So we're correcting this portion. To ask them to do the whole lake or the whole town of Winthrop seems a little extreme.
Don, path forward, this another agenda item, or is this something we can move in tonight or public hearing? What do we need to do?
I was going to suggest that you schedule a public hearing, but it sounds like we're not ready yet. They're going to come back with more information. And at that time, if you're ready to schedule a public hearing, then I will do that.
For this section, for this, and this is separate from what,
And then separately,
Yep.
it'd be helpful to talk to you about cost for that too.
Yeah.
So I would suggest you don't really need to take an action this evening
don't need to, okay,
because it wasn't noticed for a public hearing.
okay, all right. Just trying to capture what we know now. Okay. What's that? All right, moving right along. Thank you, folks. New business?
I guess we're into new business.
Fit right in, didn't it?
It did.
You already talked about Brent, right?
Yes.
Are we doing anything to try to get new members? I know they put a notice on the webpage once and,
Town clerk is noticing on the webpage and Facebook.
okay.
Know that besides that we do anything formally other than people try to reach out.
I just know they've reached out. Okay. Yeah, well, we're down to 6 members, which Brent McCarthy is no longer on the board. He resigned.
He's moving on to town.
That was, so yeah, he resigned. That's what I thought, but he told Don, so he's resigned. So he's off. We're down to 6 members, which we have 0 alternates and we're short a member. And so we have 3 openings. So, and
Moving on to number 7, other business. Town council consider extending the moratorium on solar, but we're ready to present to them, right?
So the town council is, on their next agenda, they're going to consider extending 180 days.
they have to extend, right? Because it's like coming up on that day,
Yes,
like really soon. Yeah.
yes.
But-
So, well, it's in August, but so I think
is
this
it?
will be
Okay.
okay, but it's on Monday, so my suggestion, we can't get them the recommendation for that agenda. It may be prudent to just have them go ahead and extend it, even though it's right on its.
Yeah, fine. But we're prepared to present to them what we approved tonight.
I believe so.
I don't think it matters.
We've got an action item we want on our plate and on yours. And we approved it tonight. So, Dawn, I would say move that forward to whatever agenda in the near future. And I think that the simple point is, yeah, they still got to extend it, but we're ready to give them the changes as of tonight.
Was there anything we needed to do for D? D, the one we skipped?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the no residential on the first floor.
Yeah.
I noticed it in,
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
you all had said
Okay.
Route 41 to Hanson, and I put green. So one thing was that
Okay.
it,
So we just have to notice it again is all? Okay.
yeah, and I didn't notice the property owners. I forgot from our discussion that we were notifying the individual property owners. So, and then so since it
Okay.
really shouldn't have been heard tonight, I wanted to ask, we talked briefly at the very end of the meeting about precluding some things like stairs and entrances, and I wasn't sure that I captured that correctly. But so Steve McDermott is not online anymore. The Comprehensive Plan Committee is recommending 3 things to the council coming up sometime soon. One of them is going to be about this residential on the first floor. So I'm going to seek out better language, and
Okay.
then I'm going to check and see if they had something specific in mind. I'll bring that back to you.
Yes.
I'll consider the residential piece.
Is there a deadline
That's
on that?
about what I said about stairways and entrances going
Oh,
up.
was it you who said it?
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Does this one have a state deadline though? This-
No,
Okay, this one doesn't have the state deadline of July coming up. Okay.
So help me. Did we make the motion to table this to the,
We did.
okay. I
We
thought
made the motion to table, but I just said, is there
You want-
another? I wanted to I just know, is there some, I don't want to table anything forever. That bothers me.
well, I believe you tabled it to the next meeting.
Correct.
Right, but
You
I just
wanted
didn't
time
know
to
if there was something
notify-
We needed to do.
No, it's not a state requirement. It was, something that- it's in some of your plans, downtown plan, comprehensive plan. It's already been identified. And I got the impression from talking to people around town, they thought it was already in place. So put it in place.
Who thought it was already in place?
Just, I've been here for almost 3 years and over conversations with people over that time, I think there are people who believe that that's currently.
Really? I didn't ever think it was already in place. I think it's probably a good idea. And I don't know of any storefronts that are rented for residential use presently. But it's probably a good idea. Like I said, we do have to make exceptions for egress and ingress. You know, I know at least one place where the ingress and egress, the second floor, is at 149 Main Street. One by the gas station.
149 is the mill.
That's the mill.
Yeah, across the street by the gas station. There's a stairway right there, goes right up the second floor of that building. So, you know, you
Oh, yeah.
gotta make exceptions for. some of
Gotcha.
that.
For access off Main Street. Yep.
So moving up in D, that's going to be on the next agenda.
And 149, Main Street's going to be on the agenda. And you're going to make sure those links are updated, Dawn,
Yes.
so that
I
that,
will.
make sure that
Apologize.
people, well, because we tabled it to the next meeting, there's an opportunity to renotice it. So I just make sure that those links are.
I'm back to 7A.
Constructive.
The town council.
Trying to make sure we don't get ourselves in trouble.
But
Is it,
I-
can I ask a question about, we go back to that?
Which,
The 149 app?
Yep.
Just to clarify,
I got a message, someone online saying they couldn't really hear you.
I-
So
I-
they're not online anymore, but we want people to hear you, so.
purposely do that. So DOT is not does not have to approve that driveway.
My understanding is that they need, for a change of use, that they do need approval from the MDOT because we don't have the ability to do it
It's not
locally.
a compact and we can't do. it.
State highway,
route.
okay.
Yes, yes, they do.
All right.
And that was one of our requirements. That's one of the things that
Clearly,
we
I-
listed.
Dave Allen.
And I think it is an unusual circumstance because I was trying to get my head around it, that, about grandfathering, we've got a built out situation and there are other mill towns, but they're all urban compacts. That light bulb went off just this afternoon when I was talking.
My
We do
question,
need
Those
something.
are, so those are
Is
both
the-
driveways and,
how are we gonna get that by the DOT? It's a two-way street with a one-way lane.
well, that was my next question is chatting with the Public Works Director or ferreting out some information through the deed on that, on Clark Street. I mean, are there any restrictions on it? If you look at the property line, it looks like mill property runs down a third of that road.
Right.
So their ownership of that road as well. So I trying to clarify who owns it
Yep.
and who has control over it.
Well, I think.
This is similar to Royal Street.
I was going to say, it plays right into the other one we're dealing with on Royal Street. So we really need some answers from Public Works. You may even want to consider asking them to come in and brief us on these because their understanding is going to help us. I mean, the bottom line is Clark Street is not a two-way street, doesn't meet any state or town requirements to be a two-way street. And there's no way it can without moving that property into that taking that front lawn.
We're kind of back to my suggestion, which nobody's eyes lit up, was making those both one-way streets, one in, one out, going across the back of the mill property, and they own enough property back there to do it, and putting in a bridge.
Right.
Right. You can't make that one-way. People have to
So-
get out of there.
Can we go ahead and get the works?
Doyle.
And
Yeah,
just-
please,
just-
have him come in the next meeting.
Because we have Royal Street as well, and how does that apply? And I really think you should check the deeds, yeah, because I think if it's been 40 years, the town may actually own that now. It's no longer a private right of way.
So
If the town has been maintaining it and if the town has paved it, I'm not positive, that's just my guess, is that the town now owns it.
they're going to give an interpretation, which we would give to our attorney.
Okay,
And also
Oh, God.
process of setting up with all the different reviewing departments, the meeting with DOT, which you all requested as well. So those are both ongoing.
okay.
And I will talk to Kevin I haven't talked to him about the Clark Street beyond the initial discussion.
I mean, all I really have to say, and we're not reviewing the case, I guess, at this point, so I can speak up a little more, but going one way on one street, Clark or Morton, and the other way on the other, and installing the bridge would allow development of that entire mill property. We'll run into that problem again. Okay,
I think you're entirely right. My concern is that bridge is going to be at least $1 million. Minimum.
but we're looking.
Minimum. I mean, that's dirt cheap. So I just don't see that unless the town is willing to pay for a substantial portion of it. I think it's a dead deal. Bridges are not cheap.
There's always grants. I mean, I think we need to look at it, okay? I'm not saying we have to do it, but I think we need to look at it. There may be a grant out there, we don't know.
Yeah.
It's something to look at.
But I want to see first if we can address Clark Street to make it a more legitimate width. That solves most of the problem. Yeah, you physically there is space without taking any buildings down. You know, I went down there, I pasted off, I'm like physically, but you are taking off all the grass in front of that building. And you're going building to building basically, and that gives you the 30 feet that you need to be a legitimate road and gives you a hair of space to plow. So it's tight, but you can make it work. And it's the town's road, the town's got to kind of make that decision about how we're going to maintain that. I don't see that's reasonable to the applicant. Yeah, if that mill was operational, you'd have all those cars and all those people.
Oh, you wouldn't. You know, most people walk
Yeah,
to
it
the
might
mill
be
way
very
back when.
different. Yeah, well, again, but today, if that was an operational facility, there would be a lot of cars. And I think it's something realistic that the town really has a road that doesn't meet any standards. And they need to kind of think about how they want to deal with it.
Dwight, were you finished? Dwight?
If you look at that road, it's very narrow. Even the telephone poles are not in the right of way. They're on private land.
Yep.
I don't know if CMP knows that.
Pretty sure.
And to address your question about a bridge, it's a slippery slope. You've got bank run widths, so you're not just spanning the stream.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to expand that out and make sure you've got sufficient flow and fish passage.
I agree. I mean, one thing in defense of the bridge is nobody's going upstream past the bottom of the mill anyway.
The bridge is over 20.
Turbines are right up there.
The state of Maine.
Yep.
I know, I'm not saying this is like the best idea in the world, but it's an idea. And if we don't ask, we won't get that big no,
Okay, going back to 7A, we're all done with that one, right?
Mr. Chairman, so someone commented during this conversation, they said, how many occupancy permits will you give for a bridge? I don't really understand the question. I'm wondering if they want to expand on it.
Occupancy permits,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
live under?
Neutral.
Okay, moving right along. Back to,
If they update the response, I'll let you know.
back to 7A. That discussion we were having around the extending the solar, on as I read it here, they're scheduling that for July 6th
Yes.
meeting. So, my goodness, that's 4 meetings from now. Maybe 3. And tonight we passed the changes.
So they likely could be approving it.
I'd rather have them dealing with that and not with extension. And we've dealt with all their issues. And we'd have time to fix whatever. So I would lobby for getting it on the agenda near term and either approving it or telling us what's wrong and they want to change. And then we have the ability to
Would you like me to forward this? So there were certain things you decided, let's forward this to the council. My intention is to go ahead and write that memo up, send it to Anthony, and then he'll put it on an agenda, but he usually puts it on soonest. Is that what you're saying, is to get on there sooner?
yeah. Why deal with extending it when you've got the changes, you know?
Let us know the date too.
We'd like to be there.
I don't mind being
Don't we,
there.
Greg?
Yeah.
We wanna be there.
I don't mind being
We want to be there, don't we, Greg?
if I can.
So that's my opinion on that. So what do we need to do to make that happen? It's,
CC you on the email I sent to Anthony, so you'll see that the chain been started.
Yep.
Then I can keep you updated.
thank you. Number 8, you've updated us with packages from 87 Blackberry Lane.
Did an initial review and the information all appears to be complete. And again, we've noted that it doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. I've just looked and said, they've got this, I've got this, I've got this. So against the checklist. I haven't done like a qualitative review yet, but
But I make 2 points. One, there's nothing in here about the septic system. 2, they're proposing to put it right where they proposed it in the beginning.
this,
Turn it around, move it back to the septic system, and that's it.
so I saw the applicant today stop by and just to see if they're going to be in the agenda. And he has indicated that that system exists and that it's legitimate. And he's unfamiliar with the idea that it would need to be replaced, my understanding. So they make a statement in there that there is that system, but I don't think they're proposing a replacement in there. I have to go back through and read it
Well,
more.
here's the quandary I have, and others speak up. When we did wait, were you at the site visit? That's probably pre you on the board. Betty, were you at the site visit? For Blackberry?
No.
That was one that's down on the, thinking septic tank was up and back and, no. Oh, this is way back when we did this one.
It was last fall.
Last fall.
It was
There's
cold
the cabin.
or cooler.
Anyways, what the applicant is doing, they're using the existing drainage field as the barrier to moving it back. And, one, and the board, we don't have that board member any longer, but they were the board member I consider an expert, was not impressed with that drainage field. Nor was I, and, there's potential to move it back. Greg, you talk about the rule about moving back to 100 feet. That's a
Well,
classic example.
This is also another one, which is a non-compliant structure that they're doing substantial improvement.
Right.
So, and substantial improvement was defined by Mark, and they're like 5-10 times the value of the structure. And you can't even go 50% without being a substantial improvement in the shoreline zone. So we can't allow them to do the improvement as is. So
Well,
it's not only the septic field, which is, ancient, and we knew that from the age and from the documents. There's no reference to how many bedrooms there are for the approved system. There's no record of the approved system. we don't have anything documented. So that was a concern, was how valid is that existing system? But I think the bigger question for everybody was substantial improvements. And that's something that this building needed, what would always classify as, there's no way they could not do substantial improvements to this structure. No way. It's just impossible. You know, even if they did all the work themselves, whatever, the materials alone, because of the condition of the building, would be substantially required massive improvements. And they're talking, you know, 3 bathrooms in this place. You know, just that alone, the cost of that would be well over the value of the existing building. So due to substantial improvements, and there was definitely space, I think our recommendation is going to be, you know, to deny it and say you got to move it back.
To speak specifically in writing to that pointed, piece of the ordinance.
Substantial improvements. No idea. You could say 1, you could say 4. It's a very open building. It's
Signed based on number of.
absolutely. Yep. But this system was designed based on the notes we had in someplace in the 60s.
Life expectancy.
We know, yeah. Yeah. And again, we had a former board member who is a licensed plumber and talked about some of these things with us on site and the applicant on site. And really and the hardship would be, you know, having to move the septic because it's where the building could move back to. The property is plenty deep enough. Everything is, to make this property compliant, the building would have to be moved back approximately 40 feet to make this property maybe 50 feet.
Make a comment on this thing?
So that, pardon?
So the public.
I just wonder if I can make a quick comment on this particular subject, having some familiarity with. Not the case itself, but what they consider a substantial improvement. Okay, it's not how much you spend, it's the value of the finished product. So you can do it yourself, it isn't going to help you any.
No.
Okay, that's one thing. Then the other is there's a little bit of a debate between plumbing inspectors, but technically can't have a bedroom unless it has a closet in it. Then it's considered a bedroom. And some people will put the closet in the hall. And the plumbing inspectors usually will say if there's a closet adjacent to the bedroom door, that's a bedroom. Okay, so when you start counting bedrooms, you know, yeah, well, I'm just saying, you gotta, you know, I mean, I ran it.
Mr. Chairman, I just
So
wanted
Don, I guess,
another comment from the public.
go ahead.
They've been paying property taxes on a value calculated using a variable, including number of bedrooms. So I just wanted to make sure everyone.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. So I guess, why we had this discussion is this applicant's going to come in and review the application, go through the same process we just did tonight on one property, application complete, and then approval for the application. And there's outstanding issues that have not been addressed from our walkthrough months ago on this application. So are we wasting their time and our time?
Did tell the owner, that was my understanding from communications with people who attended the site walk, that there wasn't a valid septic system, and he assured me that wasn't the case. So
They can, you, so could track. It's too.
I could reach out to him and explain that my understanding was correct and that he might want to do that to be placed on the agenda.
Our inspectors present.
Well, there's dozens of them. My wife's a
So-
real estate agent and does it.
So
all
I guess the
time.
question I'm asking is what latitude we have with relative to this applicant. You let them come in and we tell them the same thing again? What's appropriate?
So what I'm hearing you say is, hey, we've already asked about this particular thing and they didn't submit information about it. So maybe it's not complete until they give us, because you've already raised it. Okay. I'm going to give him a call.
Okay,
It'd be good to get the number for Mark. We've kind of asked for that in the past. What is the
The
judge?
dollar.
Well, again, Andy said it's the value. We understand that, but what is the increase that sets off that significant improvement? Substantial improvement, sorry. 'Cause I believe that
Okay.
number with it.
Do you have enough direction?
I understand it's 50%, but is it based, again, we had the same questions. If Mark's the one enforcing that, where's the line? Where's the line for, if he's saying 50%, is it the assessed value? Do we need to get a third party, cost evaluation for like what it would sell for? How do we do that number fairly? Because some towns are more than 50% out of compliance if they were to list their property versus the evaluation anyways. So does that mean you can't fix anything on any house in the shoreline zone? No. So we have to, again, kind of get Mark's take, I think, on it, on how he applies it so that we can kind of understand the next step, And I don't think this one has any choice. I mean, the improvements to this place that were needed were unbelievable. The value is you're going from uninhabited open space sort of to a finished house. The dramatic improvement, the value is going to be crazy different.
I guess for me, the barrier they're using to not move it back
Is
is the septic.
Yep.
And that shouldn't be a barrier, not a valid barrier.
Well, and again, the only barrier they could use would say it's a hardship, right? Because we as the planning board could say, no, we're protecting the water body, you're moving it back. They're saying it's creating hardship by making them, in addition to a house that they're potentially spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, they don't have to put a new septic field in. And absolutely, they would have that if we, yep. But I think the question I think we were asking is, we address those things on the site visit. And when we talk to the applicant, is it, if they want us to go through the process and approve or deny their application, we can go through that process and then they have the ZBA available. And I think the question was just making sure the applicant is aware that that's the path they're on.
Newer ZBA, de novo, not quite so simple. All right. But, is it still $50?
But I think,
Really nothing to lose. They don't like what you're doing and they lose. Back where they started,
think you have enough direction of our concerns relative to going forward with hearing this applicant.
Question I have is, I'm thinking maybe I should just collect those applications back because it's not complete, based on what I've heard. I'll just take it right back and they can replace.
Not the whole package, right? Just that one. Because this is staying with us. Okay.
That everything, this is it, right? That's all of it? Any other business?
I got a question to clarify for Don.
Andy, please.
sorry.
So if we move forward with adjusting resource protection lines, site specific, then propose, building 100 feet back from that. Does that have to go through DEP for approval? Is that what I heard you say?
It's not, if we're only going by the definition of it, I think that it's more of a clarification to them. I'll check with Colin. So that was one more thing. I know you guys are tired tonight, but I talked to Colin extensively today about some different aspects of the map and the ordinance. He caught a few things. So I got to follow up with him on that, and I will ask him more specifically about that. That's a little bit ambiguous because you're not actually necessarily changing it in some instances, right? We just put this swamp.
We're correcting the resource protection boundary. Right now, it's very coarse because it was done on coarse maps, so it's a big swath. The question is, if we make that correction, how does that change anything for us?
I'm trying to clarify. So if we have like a thin zone that's 75 feet of 20% or more,
Yep.
we suggesting then you can build 175 feet back?
I think what we're proposing, it's a site evaluation. You're still in shoreline zone, but you're not allowed to build in resource protection, right? So no matter how wide it is, whether it's 75 feet or 275 feet, or 250 feet, you're not allowed to build in it, period. So then the question would be, is the 75 feet, okay, we're aware of that. Now shoreland zoning applies because they're not building inside resource protection. So for me, I said the most conservative would be to apply the 100 feet, but is that reasonable? Not in all cases. So I'm not suggesting we change the language. I'm just suggesting that we have a little bit more flexibility. And there are towns out there that have adopted like shoreland zoning. You cannot build. You build 250 feet back, period. And that's, again, you can be more restrictive than the state, but not less, right? That's where we're stuck. I'm not proposing making a change to our ordinance, just correcting the line and then applying our ordinance where they wouldn't be building inside resource protection. They would be building in shoreland zone. But we would have the knowledge that that was there.
So would that be DEP approval required?
That's what you're going to ask.
Yeah, I think that our map, yeah, I'll ask to be specific, but it will be odd looking, right? It'll be all of a sudden skinny and fat because one is just based on broad information.
Well, and again,
Great to do the whole thing.
my proposal is to fix it everywhere because it really is wrong. I mean, you can see that very obvious on the 3D maps. You can see where it's wrong in a lot of places. And that's really not fair to the citizens of Winthrop, is that they're being held to a wrong standard. There's areas where it should be applied and it's not, and there's areas where it shouldn't be applied and it is. So you have it both ways. It's incorrect basically everywhere.
I agree with that, and I'm going to find the answer.
That's fine.
'Cause I'm not.
Yeah, if we use the corrected line, just, seeing what DEP requires if we correct that line. And is there a buffer beyond that? If the slope changes, how far does resource protection, does it stop right at the 20% change?
Is it an unstable slope?
What do you mean unstable?
I'm used to working on the coast too.
No, no, it's no movement, no movement. So there's not a movement applicable here. So the question is, does it stop, does resource protection end at the top of the slope, or does DEP apply a buffer to that? Do they say, oh, we want to do the top of the slope and then apply X number of feet to that, and resource protection extends beyond that change in slope? I don't know.
Bill Monagle had some thoughts about that. I can follow up with him.
Yeah, and I've talked to Bill a little bit about that, and and again, he was concerned, well, okay, if it goes up 100 feet and you could build right there, it's like, no, shoreline zoning still applies. But again, if the slope went from 20% down to -5, if somebody was building 5 feet away from that buffer, you'd say, but none of the runoff can go towards the lake. So is that fair? To build a standard is going to be tough. So that's where I'm saying it's going to have to take a little bit of judgment on our part to kind of put that evaluation. And maybe we put in some guidelines, but I think we'd have to, and that's where I said a standard buffer. I suggested 100 feet. That's probably overly conservative, but if that top of the slope is truly the line, do we put in a 50-foot buffer, just mandatory, or something like that? That would be something we could discuss and say, what is reasonable? Even if that slope does go negative, we want to make sure that we're covered without trying to specify 100 different scenarios. You know what I'm saying? Because it's never really that easy. It's tough. It is, but that's where I'm saying we want to maybe apply a reasonable buffer. I don't know. That's what we'd have to discuss.
Well, that's what we're trying to evolve to, and the steps to it. So
Another question then, if there's an existing facility in resource protection and they come back for an expansion, do we have any input based on their location in resource protection?
If there's an existing, say,
Yeah.
home,
Yeah, an existing camp and they want to turn it into, a year round.
I'm not sure that the 30% expansion rule applies to that. I'd have to check.
I almost don't think you can. And I know impervious cover applies. So if you do expand by 30%, it has to be away from the water body and you have to remove impervious cover someplace else.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Dwight moved and Greg seconded. All in favor?
I can't.
You can't vote. That's right. He can wave his hand. Just saying hi.
Promised my wife I'd be home by 9.
Blame us. You're gonna blame us.
It's tough. There's so many different scenarios.
Really,
I told him, dear, I had to go.
No. I almost think 30% doesn't apply to resource protection.
Bill,
I think it says
Yeah.
that. You can't do the 30% expansion. To check. Maybe you can, I'm not sure.